Now here's a question that demands an answer. Why is it that arguably the world's richest continent, in terms of natural resources, has some of the world's poorest people? To answer it, we'd need to take a trip down memory lane. Already I can sense you rolling your eyes deep into the back of your head. If I hear one more time about slavery in Africa. We often seem to be a people with little patience for history, or interest in the impact of past events on present realities. But time isn't linear, and we aren't always moving forward. There is no other way to understand Africa today, without considering the history of the continent. In the 1400s, the Portuguese were the first European nation to use African slave labor to cultivate sugar plantations off the coast of West Africa, in São Tomé. From then on, through its peak in the 18th century, and until its staccato abolition in late 1800s, the barbaric and dehumanizing trade in Africans would be the primary economic activity through which Europe's early globalization efforts were funded. An estimated 11 million people were forcibly taken into slavery in the New World, but comparable numbers were for centuries also sold across the Sahara, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean. The professor of economics, Nathan Nunn, in his study of Africa's slave trades on subsequent economic development, was unequivocal in his assessment: the African countries that are the poorest today are the ones from which the most slaves were taken, he wrote in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. The sordid story doesn't end there. The enslavement of the black body made way for another equally brutal system, but one that elicits even less public sympathy. In 2002, our now Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, wrote of Britain's colonial legacy in Africa: the continent may be a blot, but it is not a blot upon our conscience. The problem is not that we were once in charge, but that we are not in charge anymore. In 2016, 44% of respondents in a YouGov poll agreed with him, stating that Britain's colonial history was something to be proud of. Because this system of oppression, based on greed and white supremacy, was not a lived experience for the inhabitants of this fair isle, as segregation in the US was, for example, and because it is still not taught in our schools, we delude ourselves into believing that empire was a noble cause, and we are charmed by the promises politicians make to take us back to the good old days. What period exactly are we trying to get back to? All of Africa's colonial masters left behind a way of life completely decimated, a people traumatized and taught in colonial schools to loathe everything about themselves, their skin, their languages, their dress, their customs. Even their gods were replaced. As the psychoanalyst and revolutionary writer Frantz Fanon put it this way in his 1961 book, The Wretched of the Earth, colonialism is not satisfied merely with holding a people in its grip and emptying the native's brain of all form and content. By a kind of perverted logic, it turns to the past of the oppressed people and distorts, disfigures, and destroys it. This issue is clearly not natural. So that is why we choose to discuss about the 10 poorest nations, and see if their future will be better, or it will remain devastating to the natives of these poorest countries. Welcome to our channel Top XY. Before we continue, you can start by subscribing to this channel, so that you don't miss other interesting videos in the future. Remember, this channel is created for you and hopefully you will benefit from it. You guys are awesome. Now shall we begin? Is that a yes? Okay, let's begin then.